Good day. This is another live session of Free International Webinar brought to you by the Institute of Global Professionals or IGP. Welcome everyone. I am your host for this session. My name is Marbeth, a global member of IGP from the Philippines. It is my distinct honor to be your host for this session. I am so excited to this occasion that we can convene virtually through this international free webinar brought to us by the Institute of Global Professionals or IGP. It is my pleasure to be with you once again in this virtual event. This event is another opportunity for learning and another milestone of growing for all of us. I am proud to tell you that every day, many new participants are joining with us. I would like to welcome all of you, the new participants, to IGP's global family. With this, I feel obliged to give you a little background about IGP. The Institute of Global Professionals is an educational institution which provides social work. We believe that it is not enough to increase one's skills by just obtaining formal education. In accordance with IGP's mission, that is to empower people and hone their skills, we provide training and consultations to generate a proficient generation through webinars, trainings, offline and online courses with highly competitive speakers, and best and well-trained coaches from all across the globe so that we can cater you with the best learning platform. I am proud to inform you that IGP is an ISO certified training and education institute. We are internationally recognized and globally accredited. Did you know that IGP is an award-winning institute with multiple records as most engaging e-learning platform? Thus, IGP is your trusted platform to learn new things from the global leading leaders. We are the leading online skill development institution with thousands of learners worldwide. Most importantly, IGP is committed to serve. IGP is bringing the community of professionals to grow together and learn from each other. Here in IGP, learning never stops. We wish that you remain with us in this endeavor. I hope that everyone will stay with us until the end of the program because we have lots of things in store for you for today. Here in IGP webinars, you will not just listen to our speakers, but we appreciate your active engagement in the comments section. We encourage your participation in our live quiz competition. We ask for your interaction in the Q&A part of the program. In our live quiz competition, the top 10 participants will receive the quiz completion certificate that is right after this live event. This will be posted a few minutes after our live event on IGP's official Facebook page so that it will be ready for you to download. After which, it's a Q&A part where everyone will have the opportunity or chance to interact with our speaker by sending in your questions in the comment box. During our live show, there will be questions that will be displayed on your screen. This will keep you engaged all throughout the duration of the webinar. Simply send your idea in the comments section below. Every day during our live session, we award certificate of lifetime membership to the most active, enthusiastic, and consistent participant. So what are you waiting for? Share our live event to your friends and to your community and in other social media forms such as LinkedIn, Instagram, or Twitter. Write comments and feedback in the comment section. Who knows, you could be the next recipient of IGP's Certificate of Lifetime Membership. Please be informed that the e-certificate soft copy of this webinar will be provided to all the active participants. Before the end of the program, I will give you the certification code together with the certification process on how you can generate or auto-download your e-certificate. With this, everybody is encouraged to stay with us until the end of the program. Here in IGP International Webinar, lots of exciting things awaits us today. I am sure that all of us will have many e-takeaways and payoffs from this webinar. only from IGP. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm proud to be associated with IGP as a global member. I'm so honored to welcome all of you to the Institute of Global Professionals Pre-International Webinar. Once again, I am Marbeth, a core volunteer of IGP from the Philippines. I'm so privileged to host today's webinar. With this, I would like to say let's watch together and learn together. We believe that the power is gained by sharing knowledge, not by hoarding it. Did you know that as of this afternoon, we have already successfully completed 699 webinars in various topics of your interest? All of these are available in our website, that is www.eduigp.com. Feel free to access them anytime. You may also check all recorded webinars anytime on our Facebook page, Facebook group, and YouTube channel. With this, we expect that all of you are getting a little bit benefited both in your personal and professional life. From time to time, you may like, share, tag your friends, and write comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe in our YouTube channel and join our Facebook page, Facebook group. Please give a review in our Facebook page. To those who are with us in YouTube channel live streaming, make sure to click the bell button to be notified with our live streaming every day. To those who have joined with us through Facebook page or Facebook group, make sure to pin IGP's FB page and FB group so that you won't miss the notification of our live and upcoming webinars. It is my humble request for all of you to support us by spreading the news about IGP's free international webinar to your friends and to your community. This is the only way we can give back or show our appreciation for IGP. Your support is greatly appreciated. Thank you so much. Before proceeding to our program, first allow me to greet some of our active participants. Hello and greetings to the following people. Let me see the comment section. Okay, hello to Ma'am Ligaya Samontao. Hello, ma'am. She's been with us since 6 o'clock p.m. this afternoon, and followed by, of course, Alex Javier Alvarez. We have Kelly Ann Boala. And we have Manolito P. Parafina Jr. Ma'am Evelyn Waperima. Hello, ma'am. Our Charlene Yamaguchi, one of our volunteers here in IGP. Angeline Galicia Velasco. Maylin Gayas. Janeline Borja Mandawe. Hello, Sir Azip Azim. Hello, sir. Hi to Sir Sunday Ola Dokun. We have also Ligaya Samontao. Again, Gloria Carriaga. Hi to Nurwanti Hakim. Hi to Leia Facunla. Nurwanti Hakim again. Ginalyn Rivera. Hi, ma'am. Nico Dan Esmiro is with us today. Jogar Tozok is with us. Alan Butas is also with us. So we have so many participants today. Hello again to Ma'am Ligaya, to Ma'am Gemma Rivera, to Sir Luffy Neptuno. Hello to everyone. Good evening, good morning, and good afternoon to all of you. Again, I would like to request everyone, please share our live event to your friends. Invite as many friends as you have to attend this session. May I also request everyone to please use your magic pointy. Let's click the share button below. Shall we do it together? Okay, let's do it at the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. I hope you did. Okay, let me do that too. Did you do it? Let me see your response in the comment section. Thank you so much, everyone. And guys, please utilize the comment box for your questions and for your feedback. Share us how you feel about IGP and what you think about IGP and how IGP is being helpful to you both in your personal and professional growth and development. You may also give us suggestions that will help us innovate the program in the comment section below. All of these will be greatly appreciated. Don't hesitate to ask questions. The IGP CSR team and IGP's facilitating officers will be happy to answer your queries. Happy learning, everyone! Without further ado, let's start the program with the IGP's mantra, Feed Your Skills, Innovate, Inspire, Impact. For today, we are presenting webinar number 700 on misconceptions in instrument validation. This is a very interesting topic. Indeed, for today, we have a distinguished resource speaker from the Philippines. Currently, he is a master teacher 3 at Benigno S. Aquino National High School. Our speaker finished his baccalaureate degree in mathematics as DOST Scholar and magna cum laude in 2013. After 6 years in DepEd, he has been promoted as Master Teacher 2. He is designated as the Division Statistician in the Division Research Evaluation Committee of the Schools Divisions of Tarlac Province by virtue of the Vision Memorandum Number 58, Series of 2020. He is also an external statistician from undergraduate to doctorate studies. To speak to us about correcting misconceptions in instrument and validation, ladies and gentlemen, let us give a warm welcome to our keynote speaker for today, John Patrick D. Serrano.
Thank you so much, Ma'am Maribel, for that introduction. Greetings of peace and love to everybody from the Philippines to your homes. I'm back again to IGP and I'm super happy and
Yes,
excited to share with you what we are about to talk about for this evening. Is my, ma'am, is my slides being presented now pa?
not yet, sir. And we're so happy to have you back here in IGP. Okay, you may start sharing
I,
your screen.
I have shared it now. You're in the show. Okay, share screen, share screen. Yan.
Okay,
Is
it's
my
not yet,
screen
sir.
shared? Oh,
Not yet,
not
sir.
yet. Not yet. Helps, helps. No. Maris, stop sharing. Then I'll share again. Okay. Okay. Share screen. Share. Windows. F5. At this point, I am already sharing with you my slides. May I have a feedback
Yes,
po?
sir.
All
You're good
right.
to go. The floor is yours now.
Thank you so much po once again. Good evening po to everybody. Greetings of peace and love from the Philippines to your respective homes. At this point, let's talk about something about research, particularly on one of the critical part of research where it's so critical that the researcher should be very careful about it. Particularly, we are talking about the instrument which serve as the tool that would guide the researcher on collecting data that are needed to answer the questions posited in our research study. And we call these questions as our research questions or statement of the problem. That if the tool is not standardized enough, it would be able to have or to gather questionable quality of data. It actually follows a butterfly effect that if the data gathered from our study are not quality based, it would lead to uh, the processing of data that would have poor quality. The interpretation of our data would be poor. The recommendation would be poor, and our research would result to a disastrous imagery. Especially if our research would be used as basis for policy formulation and decision making in our own institution. That is why it is very critical for us researchers to have our tools, to have our instrument as standardized as possible. However, we may just say that instruments could just be adapted from other researchers so that we would be so that it would serve as somehow a shortcut, so that we would skip already that part wherein we would develop our instrument, because that previously developed study has been validated, and the reliability coefficient has been established already by the previous researcher. That is possible, and actually that is happening. However, remember that in the conduct of research, one of the characteristics of a good research is novelty. When we say novelty, it is actually derived from the Latin word novum, which means new. Therefore, one of the characteristics of a good research is the novelty or the newness of our research paper. Tendency is, if you could be able to look at this previously utilized instrument that had been utilized already by previous researcher, and the content of that instrument is 100% fit to the content and to the demands of our research paper, it would be somehow the newness or the novelty of our study is somehow questionable, because it seems like just a mere repetition of a study that has been previously utilized already by previous researchers, particularly if our study that we are preparing is a prerequisite for our master's degree program or our dissertation. So in a way, the novelty characteristic of our research would be questionable if that would be the case. That is why in many cases, not 100% of the cases, but in many cases, the researcher need to construct, to develop his or her own instrument that would best fit to the demands of his or her research paper. So
Hello, sir. I hope you're still there, but I think there is problem. There's something wrong with your internet connection. Hello, Sir John Patrick Serrano. I think he's having some technical issue at the moment. So, what shall we do? In the comment section below to all our participants, I would like you to comment, right? Comment in the write a comment on how long have you been with us here in IGP. Let me know, please, while waiting for our speaker. That will be something very interesting for me to know. How long have you been here, Sir Alex Javier Alvarez? Sir Alan Butas, how long have you been watching and participating in IGP's webinar? Please let me know 1 year from Ma'am Evelyn Waper. That's great, ma'am. 1 month from Ma'am Ligaya sa Montao. 1 week from Shing Claire. Oh, the comments are coming so fast. This year only from Sir Alan. Alex Javier, congratulations, Sir Alex. You've been with us for these 3 years, and we are going to have our anniversary, I think, this August. And you are now 3 years old here in IGP. That's one of the reasons why I am telling you that IGP is not just community, but it is a family. We are a global family because we've been here and we've been bonding every day, every night here in IGP. And I am also very much familiar with your names already, and you are familiar with the host. And we are just like one big global family here in IGP. Gloria Carriaga is 2 months. Cherry Lynn Yamaguchi, 1 year and 1 month. Cool. And one Facebook user answered 1 year. Mario Nases, 3 weeks. So we have a long, long way to go, Sir Mario. Leah Facunla, 1 year. Congratulations, ma'am. From Sir Sunday, it's just a few months I started participating, and I am very sure that you're enjoying here in IGP. And we are so happy to have you here, Sir Sunday. Carmela, and more than 2 years. Congratulations, Ma'am Carmela. Okay, that's great to know. And how long have I been? Do you know me? How long have I been hosting IGP? Do you still remember? Anyone who could guess? No? Sir Joel, no. But I've watched all the previous webinars. So I'm quite familiar with all the previous webinars and the events here in IGP. Sir Joel, is it you've been with IGP since the first webinar? Or is that the answer for my first question or for my second question? Right now, we do not have live in our Facebook page, but we have live in our Facebook different. I don't know how many. We have lots of Facebook groups, so we have live in some Facebook group, but in our Facebook page, right at the moment, I'm not quite sure if they have already resolve the issue, but we do not have, I can't see the live in our Facebook page right now. So we are live in YouTube and some Facebook group, but not in our Facebook official page. Ma'am Charlene, around 8 months. Is it for the first question or for the second question, ma'am? So Sir Jogar have been attending for 7 months. Do you agree with me that IGP is not just a community, but it is a family? Why do I say that IGP is a family? Another reason why I always tell you that IGP is a global family because we'll we'll let IGP, the webinars, enter in not only in our mind but also in our own homes, in our house. So that makes IGP our family. And sometimes whenever we do not have our live session, some are reacting, giving sad reactions when there are announcement of cancellation of programs. So I do understand you because I feel the same too. Sorry, Sir Alan, for that. There's no notification. You did not receive. Yeah, I think me too. I did not receive the notification today. Yes, because we do not have live in FB page. That's probably one of the reasons. There is some technical issue right now. But the technical team is trying to solve the problem at the moment. Yes, no live, ma'am, in FB. No, in FB, some of the FB page, we do have live only in F. No live in FB page, but some FB group we do have live. So we could still see participants. I could still see participants from FB. Probably they are joining from different FB groups, not the FB Live. I hope the speaker will be able to join us today. What else? What is, this is another question. What part or what segment of IGP do you like most? Is this when the speaker is delivering the lesson or the topic? Is it the Q&A part? Or is it the quiz competition or the certification process? Or you just simply enjoy watching the video? Which part of the IGP's program do you like most? May I know your answers while we are waiting for our speaker? As for me, I enjoy the quiz competition very much. I don't get it. I don't. We are only live in FB groups. Yes, ma'am. And YouTube. Yes, ma'am, Cherry. The lesson and the certification. That's great to hear, Sir Nurwanti Hakim. Quiz competition. Yes, I like quiz competition very much. Quiz competition, according to Sir Jogar. Yes, I like the quiz competition. Even though I really win the quiz competition, I still join. Yes, one of the reason why whenever we do not have the speaker or the speaker will not be able to join the live webinar, we still do the quiz competition because we could see that there are lots of participants who are always willing and waiting for the live event. And we hate to see you, we hate to discourage you by simply saying that we could not have our live program or announcing that we cannot have our live program. So one of the innovation that we did here in IGP is to go with the quiz competition even without the speaker. Anyway, we're enjoying it. Okay, the speaker commented that the speaker lost his connection because of heavy rain and strong wind, thunder, and lightning. Probably this is one of his friends. So let me know, Ma'am Nasrin, what shall we do now? Shall we proceed with the quiz competition while waiting for the... I hope this will be fine with you. To all the participants, shall we proceed with the quiz competition? While waiting for our speaker, if he could still return in our webinar. So we have so many participants now. Let's just wait for some other participants to join with us. Okay, there are three ways of joining our live quiz competition. First, you may join by clicking the joining link in the comment section. Next, you may just scan the QR code on your screen, or the third way is using your browser. Go to www.slido.com, and then as you join, please remember the code that is IGP quiz. Right now, we have 33 participants in our live quiz competition. And I am inviting everyone to please join our live quiz competition. We have so many participants now. For our first question, how do we classify instruments? By the sound and the materials they are made, or by the sound and the beautiful they are? 93% answered by the sound and the material they are made, and that is the correct answer. On our leaderboard, we have Cheryl Ann Infante leading our leaderboard. Next is Cherlyn Callejo Yamaguchi. Next, followed by Evelyn Waperi, then Alex Javier Alvarez, and Angeline Velasco. Next question. I hope I will be able to pronounce this correctly. Volleyball equals instrument. Is it true or false? The correct answer is false. Only 42% of the participants were able to get the correct answer. And on our leaderboard, Evelyn Piwa Perry is now leading, followed by Jogar Baldesco. Next is Angeline Velasco, and then Kiefer Rivera and Marilu Bisanadan. Congratulations to you. Choose the string instruments. Is it guitar or drum? 100% of the participants answered guitar, and that is the correct answer. Ma'am Evelyn Waperi is leading the leaderboard, followed by Angeline Velasco. Next is Jogar Tusok, and then Kiefer Rivera. On the fifth, we have Marilu Senadan. Next question, choose the wind instrument. Is it sitar or trumpet? trumpet is the correct answer, and 94% of the participants answered correctly. Evelyn Wapuri is leading the leaderboard, followed by Angeline Velasco, then Jogar Tasok, and then Marlu Sanadan, and on the fifth is still have Kipper Rivera. Next question. Which of these instruments is plucked? It is swan mandal or banzuri. I'm sorry, but I'm not familiar with these instruments. 71% answered the first option, and that is the correct answer. On our leaderboard, still Evelyn Pio Perry is leading the board, followed by Angeline Velasco. Next is Jogar Tozok, and then Carmela N and JB Aparencio. Next question. Fantasies and misconceptions about equipments that is used is common in infants or toddlers. 75% of the participants answered toddlers. That is the correct answer. On our leaderboard, still we have Evelyn Waperi. Next is Angeline Velasco. On the third, we have Carmela and on the fourth, we have Jogar Tosok. And then on the fifth, we have Christina Vidal Rosario. Which of the following is not an example of the traditional instrument played in Afghanistan? Is it tabla or piano? The correct answer is piano. 65% of the participants answered correctly. On the leaderboard, this time we have Angeline Velasco, followed by Carmela Bihaan. On the third, we had Kipper Rivera, and then followed by Michael G. Gazer, and then Evelyn Waperi. Next question. Is a gong an instrument? Yes or no? This is something confusing. Is it an instrument? "100% of the participants answered yes, it is an instrument." That's good. Then on our leaderboard this time, we have Angeline Velasco, followed by Carmela Bihaan. Next is Kipper Rivera. On the fourth, we have Michelle G. Gazar. On the fifth, we have Evelyn P. Waperi. Congratulations to you guys. Question number 9. What instrument is used for the detection step of HID workflow? Is it 75,000 or 35,000? "67% 75,000, but the correct answer is 35,000, and only 33% of the participants were able to answer correctly. Excuse me. On our leaderboard, we have Kiefer Rivera, followed by Angeline Velasco. Next is Alan Butas. On the fourth, we have Rose Ann Regalado. And on the fifth, we have Carmela Bihaen. We are now on question number 10. What African lute instrument features 21st string? Is it ngoni or kora? 68% answered the first option, but the correct answer is kora, and only 32% of the participants were able to get the correct answer. Congratulations to our winners for today's quiz competition. First, we have Keeper Rivera, followed by Flumi R. Salvijo. On the third, we have Angeline Velasco. Fourth is Evelyn Waperi. Fifth is Alan Brutas. Okay, could you make it a little bigger? Six is Jodkar. On the seven is Likayo. Eighth place is Carmela and ninth place is Rose Ann Regalado. And 10th place is Terry Callejo Yamaguchi. Are we going to give? Okay, thank you so much. Congratulations to all our winners for today's quiz competition. Let's see if the speaker could still come back with us. Let me know what shall we do. Are we going to proceed with the presentation or we? Oh, I think he's coming back. Hello, sir.
Hello, ma'am.
Welcome back to IGP. Yes. We're so glad to have you back here again. So,
Thank you po.
start presenting you may share your presentation again.
Ma'am, I am currently sharing my slide. May I have a feedback?
Okay, it's still loading. Yes, it's I can see it now, sir.
Okay po.
There, the audience is yours now.
Alright po. Thank you so much po, Ma'am Maribeth. Let's resume.
Okay.
Considering the complex procedures when it comes to validating our instruments and then later on testing the reliability of such, researchers tend to meet researchers tend to commit misconceptions. And in our discussion this evening, let us try to correct these misconceptions to the extent that the procedures or corrections that we're going to tackle would be the standard procedures that are required by different Scopus index journals. For here in the Philippines, I actually have a friend of mine who is a brilliant researcher who is able to publish many of her research papers on Scopus Index journals, particularly at De La Salle University, because the Journal of De La Salle University po is a Scopus Index journal. Talk about the hierarchy of journals comes international journal standards. The journals that that are at the peak level, optimum level of expertise belong to the Scopus Index journals. So I have a friend of mine who is able to publish her the many of her research papers on these Scopus Index journals, and most of the time, other researchers, the readers from that journal, tend to contact her to enable for her to give her permission to use her instrument. And since that instrument is part of her intellectual property, she is actually allowing them to use her instrument provided that they are going to pay a certain amount of money. And that is legal. And that is purely legal. Why? Because that instrument is part of the intellectual property of that researcher. I know that because the statistician is me. I am the statistician of that researcher of mine. And there is a portion uh, of the peer review procedure among this Scopus Index journal regarding the development of instrument that they are truly looking at. So the sophistication of instrument validation are closely monitored by this panel committee before a certain paper would receive a recommendation for publication. And those are the things that we're going to discuss this evening. I am Sir Patrick, John Patrick Di Serrano, a master teacher too from the Department of Education Philippines. I would be your speaker for this evening. Before we proceed further, profound thanks to the director and founder of IGP, Sir Kaushik Data, for opening the doors of IGP to me. Thank you so much, Sir Kaushik. I hope that you would still want me to present to IGP next time. Profound thanks as well to our head, the head of Benigno S. Aquino National High School, where I teach, the principal four of our school, Dr. Nelia Y. Andres, and of course to Sir Redentor B. Tabamo, Head Teacher 6, OIC Assistant Principal of Benigno S. Aquino National High School, the wind beneath the wings of our school head, the shock absorber, the stress absorber, the ultimate troubleshooter of our school, Sir Redentor B. Tabamo. Thank you so much po, Sir and Ma'am, for opening the doors of IGP to me. Thank you so much. At this point, there are actually different types of instruments. And the variety of these instruments that depend on the nature and the requirements of our research paper would demand specific formats of instrument. But since there are a wide array of formats in instrumentation, and tendency is by the variety of these instruments, there are distinct ways on how to establish validity and reliability on such. But since we only have limited time for this platform, let us just focus on the construction of test instrument and scale-based instruments. Why? Because based on my experience, these are the most commonly used format being utilized by studies here in the Philippines. And also based on my experience as statistician in our schools division in Tarlac province. So by definition of term, when we say test instrument, we are pertaining to this format of the instrument we're in. We have our STEM. We usually call this STEM as our question or what we would want to answer. And we have alternatives. In layman's term, we call these alternatives as options, wherein one of these options is the correct answer and the remaining are the incorrect answer. Whenever we say test instrument, we are pertaining to this format of the instrument. On the other hand, let's talk about also skill-based instrument, such that when we say skill-based instrument, we're pertaining to this format of the instrument wherein we have here a set of statements, and then based on these statements, we are going to indicate our ratings. Could be possible that there would be 5 skills in that rating. In this case, there are 5 skills: amazing, good, fair, or ugly. Could also be possible that there would be 4 skills. Could be possible and allow that there would be 3 options already only. Could also be possible that there are only 2 options to choose from. If there are only 2 options, we call that kind of instrument as this the we call that kind of option as dichotomous responses. Dichotomous responses because there could only be 2 options that our participants could choose from. However, putting in statements here are not easy as it usually seems by our researchers, such as when you look at the sky and you think of certain statement, you will just put it there in your instrument. That's not how easy as that. Let us talk about the procedure on how to come up with those statements later on in our study. We'll focus on test instrument misconceptions on the construction and how we're going to correct those misconceptions in the construction of test instrument and skill-based instrument. For the content or the overview of this discussion, per test instrument, we'll talk about the validity of items. When we talk about validity, we are talking about the items contained in that instrument. For the validity of instrument, we'll talk about the table of specifications or the TOS, or the portion of the table of specification that is needed later on for our content validation. After discussing briefly table of specification, we'll talk about fifth validity and then later on content validity, where we're going to utilize content validity ratio so that we would want if the content of that particular item is valid or not. And then for the reliability of the entire instrument, we could actually choose from any of these split half reliability. We're going to utilize Spearman-Brown prophecy formula, the test-retest reliability, the parallel form or alternate form reliability, and lastly, the Kuder-Richardson reliability for test instrument. Under the skill-based instrument, under the validity of the items, we'll talk about the literature review that focuses on how we are going to uh, and on how we are going to put together the statements that we're going to put in our scale-based instrument and the construct validity. Wherein, in the construct validity, we're going to utilize principal component analysis. Principal component analysis is one of the procedures under factor analysis. And there are actually two folds in the conduct of factor analysis. Could be in the form of uh, exploratory factor analysis, where one of the methods where one of the methods is principal component analysis, and then the other version or the other part of factor analysis would involve confirmatory factor analysis, where the tool would be structural equation modeling or SEM. However, since we are talking about the validation of instrument and the applicability the uh, goes to exploratory factor analysis, particularly on principal component analysis. That is why we are going to focus on principal component analysis. And then later on, we'll talk about the reliability of that entire scale-based instrument using the Cronbach alpha. So let's talk about the validation of test instrument beginning with table of specification. In the Department of Education or in any educational institution, we actually have different format of the table of specifications or TOS. However, talking about the content validity of our table of specifications, the most important parts of it would be the objectives. Here are the objectives or the competencies that we would want to measure. And then the item placement. To which item could you locate these items that measure these particular objectives or specific competencies? The table of specification serves as the blueprint of the engineer, isn't it? For sure, we have friends who are engineer, and before that engineer constructs a certain building, he or she has to build a certain plan first, and that plan is in the form of a drawing, the blueprint of the blueprint or the plan for that building. So the building will be constructed based on that plan blueprint. That thing is analogous to being an educator by the time that we are actually preparing our test instrument or simply our test. Before we construct our test, we tend to build first our blueprint. And that blueprint is called as our TOS or table of specification. Later on, as we proceed with content analysis, we'll talk about why is it essential for us to be super keen about this column, which pertains to the competency or the objectives, and then the item placement of those items. After you have had, and then when you are prepared, when you have prepared already this table of specification, you are now ready to construct the first version of your instrument. Now, the first version of your in the construction of the first version of your instrument, you have to think in mind the final version of your instrument. So assuming that in the final version of your instrument, you are aiming to have a test instrument that would compose of 30 items. Assuming that you are aiming for a test instrument containing 30 items. One of the misconceptions of some researchers is if they aim to have 30 items instrument, they tend to create or they tend to build 30 items only in the first draft of their instrument. That is wrong. That is wrong. Why? Because comes through item analysis, there would be statistical procedures where we would determine which among these items are considered as valid and invalid items. Then in the procedure, we are removing those invalid items. So, if in the beginning you have only constructed 30 items, in the long run, you will not be able to come up with the vision 30 item final version of your instrument. So that is a misconception that if your vision test instrument would compose of 30 items in the beginning or in the uh, in the initial version of your instrument, you're going to construct items more than 30. Principle is double that 30. So the initial version of your instrument should contain 60 items. So that by the time that your instrument would pass through item analysis, there would be higher chance that you would still come up, that you would still materialize that vision 30 items of the final version of your instrument. So uh, after developing the initial version of your instrument, the first thing that you have to do is have it validated by your experts. Is to have it face validated by your expert. In this case, you may actually adapt you may actually adapt the evaluation rating sheet developed by the LRMDS. The LRMDS is one of the portals of the Department of Education here in the Philippines, where it is actually a compilation of instructional materials and all other materials that teachers in the Department of Education may use. We have that kind of portal. We have that kind of public domain portal prepared by the Department of Education to us public teachers. So you may just utilize that evaluation rating sheet to be provided to our experts as their guide in the face validation of our instrument. When we say face validation, they're going to determine how is the size of the letters of your instrument, are the spaces good enough? How is the font? Are they easy to read? How are the illustrations? Should there be colored, or could be possible that the illustrations could only be black or white, and so on and so forth. Another misconception another misconception on instrument validation among researchers is when they pass through face validity, they do not have this instrument. They do not have this instrument that serve as guide to experts in the face validation of their instrument. They just provide their instrument to the experts and just let the experts comment on the face validation of their instrument. That is not correct. You should be able still to give this evaluation rating skill to our experts so that the experts would be guided to how much or to what extent they are going to have the face validity of the first draft of your instrument. Okay, so that's another misconception. Okay, next. Okay. Once you have passed through the phase validity, you are now going to revise your instrument based on the suggestions of your experts. Now that you have developed or revised your instruments based on the suggestions of your experts, you are now going to have it dry run practice. You're going to have it dry run to your pseudo participants or your pseudo respondents. What do we mean when we say pseudo participants? If in your study, your target participants are students in section 1, again, if in your study, your target participants are the students in section 1, you're going to have this first draft of your instrument dry run or practice to students in the section 2. You're going to practice you're going to practice this to to those pseudo participants. But before that, you also have to have your instrument content validated by the same set of experts that you have. The objective of content validity is to enable our experts to determine the alignment of your test item or test question to the objective or competency that you would want to measure. Again, the main objective of content validity is to enable for experts to determine if the item or your test question is aligned or truly measure the objective or competency that you would want to measure. So for example, in cookery, one of the TVL courses in senior high school, the competency is about seasonings. The competency is about seasonings. But your item is about determining whether the meat is tender. Determining the question is about the ways on how to determine whether the meat cook is tender or not. So in that case, this item the content of this item is not aligned or have not something to do with the objective or competency that you would want to measure. So those are the things that our experts would like to identify per content validity of your instrument. So for every item, they're going to write their comments there. They're going to write their comments for improvements per instrument. And then per instrument, they're going to provide ratings for this instrument. Irrelevant. They're going to determine whether this item is relevant, somewhat relevant, mostly relevant, and extremely relevant. But before that, you also have to inform our experts the descriptions of these ratings. When could you say that an item is irrelevant? When could you say that an item is somewhat relevant? When is it called mostly relevant? And when is it called extremely relevant as part of your orientation to your experts? In the content validation of our instrument, this is actually omitted. This is actually a portion of the validation that is usually committed by our researchers. It's either they do not know anything about this or they could just skip this part. And that is another misconception when it comes to the preparation of test instrument. This should be included. Why? Because after identifying the ratings, you're going to compute the content validity ratio. The content validity ratio. Because this content validity ratio would determine if the content of every item is considered valid or not. So how we're going to compute the content validity ratio? So you're going to assign numerical equivalencies of these ratings. Say for example, every time the experts check a relevant item would be equivalent to 1. Somewhat relevant would be equivalent to 2. Mostly relevant would be equivalent to 3. Extremely relevant would be equivalent to 4. And then if you have 3 or 4 experts, you're going to compute the average rating indicated by all your experts per item. And then you divide that average by the highest rating, which is in this case is 4. Again, to compute for the content validity ratio, for every item, this is 1, this means 1, this means 2, mostly relevant means 3, extremely relevant means 4. Among your experts, you're going to get the average scores indicated by your experts. And that average would be divided by the highest possible score that they could give. In this case, the highest possible score is 4. So the average of these ratings divided by 4, you will get a ratio. Now, according to Rutherford Hemming in 2018, he mentioned that a content validity ratio or CVR of at least 0.78 is necessary to deem an item as valid. So, for all items which receive a content validity ratio 0.78 or better would be considered as valid items by content validity, which means that all items which had content validity ratio less than 0.78 will be omitted or removed instantly from our test instrument. Okay? And that is actually the first layer of removal of invalid items per content validity in the first draft of our test instrument. Okay? Again, we will utilize content ratio validity to measure the content validity of our instrument. That is computed by dividing the average score provided by our experts divided by the maximum possible scores that they could provide. Should contain 0.78 to call an item valid. Okay? So after determining or measuring the content validity ratio of every item, you will already omit items which are considered invalid. And now you are ready to have the present version of your instrument dry run. You're going to pass through dry run to your pseudo participants. I have explained earlier already what do we mean when we say pseudo participants. That if your target participants are members of section 1 in that particular school or in that particular grade level, you're going to practice your instrument dry run to students in the section 2. Okay? And then you are going to uh, administer that question to them. You're going to measure their scores. And then you're going to arrange their papers from highest to lowest. And by the time that you're already able to measure their scores, you are ready to pass through item analysis. In this item analysis, we are actually measuring already we are measuring further which among these items are valid and invalid items. Okay? So after arranging your items from highest to lowest, you're going to multiply the total number of pseudo participants by 0.27 because 0.27 is 27%. Talking about the number of pseudo participants, they should be minimum 54. There should be minimum 54 participants. Okay? So what if there are less than 54? What if there are less than 54 in that section 2 or in that section B? That would also be allowed, provided that it would not be less than 30. It would not be less than 30. Why? If it's less than 30, your pseudo participants are too few to the extent that the credibility of your validity procedure would be questionable already. If your pseudo participants are that few, if they are fewer already by 30. So the ideal is 54 or better, but could be adjusted the least 30. So whatever the number of participants are, you multiply that by 27%. The question is why 27%? This 27% uh, is actually pertaining to the quartile rank, the upper quartile rank for the upper group and the lower quartile rank of that and the lower quartile rank of that particular group. However, through the years, statisticians and educators have have told the academic community that 25% quartile is actually a numerically perfect value. So they tend to add this adjusted number because 27% is too perfect, is too numerically perfect. So to provide corrective value, they came up with the additional 2% in that quartile value. But the origin of this 27% is actually quartile, the total distribution divided by four different groups. So we have 27%. So the total number of pseudo participants, the test takers during the dry run, multiplied by 27. So assuming that the answer is 19 for the upper group and another 19 for the lower group, which means that you're going to pick the top 19 scorers. You're going to pick the test papers of the top 19 scorers. And for the lower group, you're going to pick the lowest 19 scorers. All the papers in between will be set aside. Okay? Will be set aside. Once you have determined the upper group, you're going to count how many among these participants got item number one correctly. So in this case, out of 19 pseudo participants who belong to the upper group, 15 of them got item number one correctly. For item number two, out of 19 pseudo participants who belong to the upper group, 12 of them got the correct answer for item number one, and so on and so forth. The same and true with people in the lower group. It says here that for item number one, out of 19 persons in the lower group, 5 of them got item number one correctly. For item number two, out of 19 persons in the lower group, 15 of them got item number two correctly. So that's how we come up with those frequencies. This time, we're going to compute for the proportion. Proportion is computed as 15 divided by 19 gives us 0.79. 5 divided by 19 gives us 0.26. 12 divided by 19 gives us 0.63, and 15 divided by 19 gives us 0.79. This time, we are going to extend our computations to the difficulty index. The difficulty index is computed by the average of the two proportions. In this case, the difficulty index is computed as the proportion of the upper group plus the proportion of the lower group divided by 2. So for item number 1, the proportion of the upper group is 0.79. That is why we have 0.79 there. Plus the proportion of the lower group, which is 0.26. That is why the value there is 0.26. 0.79 plus 0.26 divided by 2 gives us 0.53. That is why the difficulty index of item number 1 is 0.53. This time, we are ready to compute for the discrimination index. The formula for the discrimination index is computed by subtracting the proportion of the upper group and the lower group. In this case, the proportion of the first group is 0.79. That is why we have 0.79 there, minus the proportion of the lower group, which is 0.26. That is why we have 0.26 there. We get the difference. That's why we have 0.53 there, giving the discrimination index as 0.53. The same procedure that we are going to use for the rest of the test items. Now, we are going to interpret this difficulty index and discrimination index before deciding whether that particular item will be accepted, rejected, or revised. There are cases wherein researchers tend to utilize the item analysis table of Frydenberg, and that is allowed. That is allowed. Frydenberg has been developed, the Frydenberg item analysis table had been developed 1995. However, researchers tend to think that item analysis is limited to the version of Frydenberg, which is wrong. There are other item analysis tables that we may adapt as basis in our decision making. And one of those item analysis tables is the item analysis table of Shundafan, which we are going to study now. The item analysis table of Shundafan says that an item will be accepted if the computed difficulty index is within the interval 0.20 to 0.80, and at the same time the computed discrimination index is still within this interval 0.30 to 0.80. So having these rules applied, let us check every item. For item number 1, the computed difficulty index is 0.53. And 0.53 is within the interval 0.20 to 0.80. Check. For the discrimination index, which is equivalent to 0.53, which is again within the interval 0.30 to 0.80. Another check. That is why item number 1 should be accepted. Item number 1 should be accepted. However, however, if your difficulty index is lower than 0.20, it means that your item is too difficult. If the computed difficulty index is less than 0.20, it means that that particular item is difficult. If it is difficult, you're going to remove it right away. Okay? On the other hand, if the computed difficulty index is greater than 0.80, it only means that that particular item is very easy. If it is very easy, you're going to remove that item right away. Again, right away, regardless whether the discrimination index is within this interval or not. Okay? On the other hand, if the difficulty index is within the range 0.20 to 0.80, just as in this case, 0.71 is within the interval 0.20 to 0.80, it is within this interval, but the discrimination index is not within this interval, which is in this case 0.16, is not within the interval 0.30 to 0.80. You can only revise that item. If it is within this interval, but not within this interval, it will be revised. What's more important is the difficulty index than the discrimination index. Okay? So after completing this procedure, it's not rocket science. As you can see, we're just using plus minus. We're just using plus minus and then divide. It's not rocket science. It's not complex mathematics. Okay? It's only easy mathematics. So uh, after going through this process, the UL, upper group, lower group, index method, we could already determine which among these items would be accepted, rejected, and revised. For all items which are considered accepted and revised, the next thing that we're going to do is the plausibility of alternatives. When we say possibility of alternatives, the likeness of these options, of these wrong options to be chosen by the lower group, and the possibility or likeness of these alternatives or options, correct options to be chosen by the upper group. Let me repeat that. When we say plausibility of alternatives, we are pertaining to the likeness or the plausibility of the incorrect alternatives or incorrect, wrong options to be chosen by the lower group. And the plausibility or the likeness of the upper group to choose correct alternatives or correct options. That is the principle underlying plausibility of alternatives. There are cases based on my experience as a statistician in a division that this procedure has been omitted already by our researchers by the time that they construct their test instrument, which should not be. That is another misconception. They are omitting already this part. This should not be omitted. So let us analyze every alternative. In item number one, since option B is red, it only means that B is the correct answer for item number one. A is incorrect, C is incorrect, D is incorrect, D is correct. It's the correct option or alternative. For item number two, C is the correct answer. That's why it is in red. So, to enable for it to be considered plausible, for incorrect items, more of the persons in the lower group should get that alternative more than the upper group. What are these numbers? For upper group, for the upper group, three of them chose A for item number one. Among the lower group, five of them chose A for item number one. That's what these numbers mean. For item number two, for upper group, three from them chose A for item number two. Six from the lower group chose A for item number two, and so on and so forth. Okay? To be considered plausible, more of the persons, more of our participants should use more of our so the participants in the lower group should choose the incorrect answer. In this case, more persons from the lower group chose the incorrect answer. That is why that particular alternative should be retained because it's considered as a good alternative. In this case, this is an incorrect answer. More people from the lower group chose this incorrect answer. They are seven. Compared to the persons in the upper group, they are only four. So this is considered as a good alternative as well. On the other hand, when we talk about correct answer, more participants from the upper group should choose the correct answer. So in this case, five is greater than 2, and 5 belong to the upper group. That is why this correct answer is a good and plausible alternative. Okay? So for item number 2, for the correct answer, more of the participants from the lower group chose the correct answer. So you're supposed to revise this alternative or this option. While this is the correct answer, you have to make changes on how that particular option is stated, even if it is the correct answer. You're going to revise it. The concept is still there, the principle is still there, but you're only going to revise the way it was stated because it's not that powerful alternative per possibility of per analysis of the plausibility of alternatives. Okay? And then, once you have passed through this item analysis portion, you have removed already items which ought to be removed by virtue of content analysis, content validity ratio. and item analysis, you are now ready to construct the final version of your instrument. Be mindful that in the construct validation of your instrument, it should be reflective of the table of specification that you have constructed in the beginning. You have to be mindful that the final version of your instrument should be reflective of the table of specification that you have developed in the beginning. One of the misconceptions, another misconception among researchers is they construct the instrument first before they construct their table specification. That is wrong. That is wrong. You need to construct the table of specification first before constructing your instrument because your table of specification would serve as your guide on how you're going to prepare or develop your instrument. And now that you have completed already the final version of your instrument, you're now ready to compute its reliability quotient. So to do that, you're going to have it dry run again. The final version. The final version should pass through dry run again. For the split half reliability, so you have passed through dry run the second time around. So after retrieving their test papers and after measuring their test papers, by measuring we mean determining their scores. So after determining their scores, you are now going to separate odd number items and even number items. When we say odd number items, we're pertaining to item number 1, item number 3, item number 5, item number 7, 9, 11, 13, 15, 17, 19, and so on and so forth. For even number item, we are pertaining to item number 2, item number 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, and so on and so forth. So for those split item, we are going to determine how many among this odd number, uh, how many items did our pseudo participant number one got among from these odd number items? What is the score of our pseudo participant from these even number items? So meaning to say, for every participant, he or she is going to have two scores. One score for the odd number items, another score for the even number items. Let me repeat that. For the split half reliability, every pseudo participant will have two scores. A score, the total number of scores he or she had for all odd number items, and another score for all even number items. So for every participant, you will have two set of scores. So after completing all these two set of scores, you're going to compute for the Pearson. You are going to compute for the Pearson. Okay? So Pearson in Excel is computed this way equals Pearson, open parenthesis. You select the first set of scores, meaning scores of our participants from even numbered items, comma, you select scores, set of scores from even number items, close parenthesis, you hit the enter key, you'll get the Pearson R. This Pearson R now will be used in the computation of the Spearman-Brown prophecy formula. This Spearman-Brown prophecy formula is the corrective formula for Pearson R in the computation of the split half reliability coefficient. So in this case, since the computed Pearson is 0.917524, will be the value of Pearson R, RS here. So 2 times 0.917524 divided by 1 plus 0.791754 gives you 0.96 as the reliability coefficient using the Spearman-Brown prophecy formula. So we're going to interpret this reliability coefficient using this interval. So since it's 0.96, it hit very high positive correlation. In the conduct of test instrument, you should hit at least 0.70. 0.70 to enable for you to receive this go signal that you could use your instrument finally for data collection. You should hit this mark 0.70 or better. You will That's how you use split half reliability. For test retest reliability, you'll also going to have two sets of scores. How does this happen? So you have one version of the final, you have that one version of your instrument, and you're going to administer this to your pseudo participant. And then after some time, perhaps after 4 days or after 5 days or after a week, you're going to retest that same instrument to that same set of participants. That's why it's called test retest. You're going to administer that test, and then after some time, you're going to retest that same test to the same group of participants. So we have score A before and then score B after. Two sets of data, you're going to compute for the Pearson R equals Pearson. I have discussed that already. And then you'll hit the Pearson value 0.917524. That is already the reliability coefficient using the test retest method. The computation is still presented here as our guide. Point 0.9, very high correlation. What we need is correlation 0.70 or better to enable for us to be able to use that instrument, quality instrument for data collection. We also have what we call as parallel form or alternate form reliability. There are two sets of tests. There are two sets of tests. The content of the content of the first test is the same as the content of the second test, but not verbatim. By principle, by the level of difficulty, they are the same, but they are not 100% verbatim the same. By concept, by principle, they are the same, but by content, verbatim or by word, they are not the same. They are similar instruments. They are similar instruments that we are going to administer to the same set of pseudo participants on two different time periods. So in this case, we have two sets of data. We compute the Pearson R. We'll get the reliability coefficient. So the same way interpret on how we interpret that coefficient. And then lastly, we utilize Cooder-Richardson reliability. Cooder-Richardson reliability is utilized when there are only two possible results. There are only two possible results per item. What are these results? Correct or wrong? If an item, upon checking, could either be correct or could either be wrong, you could use Cooder-Richardson reliability. However, there are two kinds of Cooder-Richardson equations. Could be Cooder-Richardson 20 and Cooder-Richardson 21. What is the difference between the two according to Lewis and Ortiz? They told us that the Cooder-Richardson 20 will always be greater or equal to Cooder-Richardson 21. It is considered more accurate than the Cooder-Richardson 21. Meaning to say, by principle, Cooder-Richardson 20 is just the same as Cooder-Richardson 21 by principle. By principle. They only differ by their level of accuracy. The Cooder-Richardson 20 is more accurate than Cooder-Richardson 21. That is why in this example, we have utilized the Cooder-Richardson 20. Okay, so we have here our Excel, a print screen of our Excel. One means correct response, zero means incorrect response. So we have there for pseudo participant number one, for question one, he got it correctly. For question two, he got it correctly. For all the items, he got it correctly. For pseudo participant number three, he got question number one correctly. He got question number two incorrectly. That is why there is zero there. And then as we complete this data, we get the summation, the cross summation of this. So the summation of this row 11, the summation of this row 9, and so on and so forth. So for this part, the summation of this row, we have 10 and so on and so forth. Once we have completed that, we are ready to compute for our P. Our P here is 0.8333. That is computed by 10 divided by 12. 10 divided by 12 gives us 0.833. 0.75 is determined by computing 9 divided by 12 gives us 0.75. 9 divided by 12 gives us 0.75. 8 divided by 12 gives us 0.6667, and so on and so forth. That's how we compute for P. Q is computed by subtracting P from 1, which means 1 minus 0.8333 equals 0.1667. 1 minus 0.75 equals 0.25. 1 minus 0.75 equals 0.25. 1 minus 0.75 equals 0.25. 1 minus 0.66667 equals 0.333, and so on and so forth. That's how we compute for P. Q is computed by multiplying the value of P and Q. In this case, 0.83333 times 0.16667 equals 0.13889. 0.75 times 0.27 gives us 0.1875, and so on and so forth until you complete those. And then you compute for the summation of this PQ gives us 2.14583. Okay? So K is actually the total number of items. K is the total number of items. The summation of PQ, we have there the summation of PQ, 2.17583. The variance is the variance of all the scores. Of all the scores of our pseudo participants, regardless whether they belong to the upper group, lower group, that's not needed anymore because we have passed through second level of dry run. Eh. So there's no such thing as upper group and lower group already. We're going to include all those scores in the second batch of item analysis. We'll get the variance of their scores. And then let's now compute the reliability coefficient. Go to charts on 20. K should be the total number of items, which is 11. So this should be 11. Now, K pertains to the total number of items. So since there are 11 total number of items, this should be 11. And then you substitute all the other variables. The summation of PQ is 2.146 because this is 2.146 divided by the variance, which is 6.52. So we have 6.521 there. Simple arithmetic, you'll come up with 0.74. Again, the coefficient, the reliability coefficient that we would want to hit is 0.70 or better. 0.70 or better. And that is the entire procedure on how we develop our test instrument. This time, we are ready to talk about how we are going to construct or develop our scale-based instrument. First thing first, we should have literature review. When we say literature review, you'll think of your variable or that's something that you would want to measure or something that you would want to measure. In this case, you would want to measure absenteeism. So since we are trying to measure absenteeism, you're going to look as much as many journal publications as possible, particularly published for the past 5 years or must be published for the past 10 years. You're going to collect all research-based statements about absenteeism. In this case, this statement, lack of family support had pushed absenteeism, is a statement produced by the study of Elise. Effects of absenteeism to the learning performance of fourth-year students, blah, 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 blah. Another statement is both parents and students considered parental involvement as one of the important factors that enable the students to pursue their studies. A statement produced from the study of Cepada and Grepon in 2020 and so on and so forth. So the idea is what researchers do is they look at the sky and think of statements, and they're going to put those statements in their scale-based instrument. That is wrong. You need to pass through literature review so that you would guarantee that every statement contained in your skill-based instrument are research-based. And that is important. You need to establish in your development of skill-based instrument that none of those statements contained in your skill-based instrument are opinionated or mere product of your own imagination as a researcher. That is wrong. That is wrong. The correct thing is you conduct literature review intended for identifying statements about the variable that you would want to measure, all research based, so that you would be able to claim that every statement contained in your instrument are all research based, are all supported by various research papers. So here's the template. Here's the statement, and here's the source. So you look at as many a statement as possible about that variable that you're trying to measure. Okay? And then after which, you're going to have a list of all the statements that you have found out in the form of scale-based instrument. So in this case, there are five scales. S A strongly agree, A agree, U undecided, D disagree, S D strongly disagree. It doesn't matter if you're going to 5-point scale, 4-point scale, 3-point scale, or 2-point scale. As long as it is a skill-based instrument, it doesn't matter. The principle is still there. Okay? Once you have had this, you're going to pass through this first version of your instrument through dry run again. And then you're going to measure the scores of your pseudo participants during your dry run. Why? Why is it important that you are go why is it important that this set of statements still need to pass through dry run? Why? Because why do we need to pass this through dry run? All these items are research based already. All these items are research based already. What is the need for that dry run? We need that dry run because the initial version of our instrument is still a long set of statements. We need to have this version of our instrument. First thing first, we need to determine which among these items are considered invalid items. Yes, even if all these items are statements from research, it does not guarantee it does not guarantee that all these are considered automatically as valid items. There are still cases that there are still some of these which are considered as invalid items. So we need to determine which among these statements are considered as invalid. And at the same time, we're going to pass through this grouping because among this long list of instruments, some of these statements have something in common among them. And we are going to group those statements. In this case, these five statements are grouped into one. The items are specific, the items are attainable, the items are measurable, and so on and so forth. These are grouped because they talk about something in common, the objectivity of a certain instrument. The same went true with another group. The instrument is long enough, items have high discriminating tendencies, the instrument has good internal consistency, and so on and so forth. All these items are grouped together because there is something common to them. They talk about the length of instrument, and so on and so forth. In this case, we have two groups. this first group of instruments and another group of instruments. In statistics, we do not call this as groups. We do not call this as groups. We call this as components or factors. So we have component number one, factor number one, which talk about objectivity, and component number two or factor number two, which talk about the length of the instrument that we're going to dig into later on in the principal component analysis. So this is the final version of the instrument that we desire. So how we're going to come up with that version of that instrument, that's the thing that we're going uh, to discuss as we proceed with our discussion. So once you are done with your dry run, you're going to assign scores for every item. So first thing first, you have in the development of your instrument, you should contain positive and negative items. You should contain positive and negative items. Why? To trace pseudo participants who are serious in completing your instrument and to enable for us to determine who among those participants have just check without even reading about our participants, about our statements. So in this example, I love the project. So the person will say strongly agree. When he says, I hate the project, he will say disagree or strongly disagree because in the first place, he loved the project. So when we say, I hate the project, he will just tend to disagree. But if there are cases wherein it was told, I love the project, and the participant said, strongly agree, and on the second statement, it was asked, I hate the project, and again, he mentioned strongly agree. So what craziness is that? Do you love the project or not? So that's the way we determine which who among these participants answered our instrument by heart and who among and which among the pseudo participants have just taken our instrument by granted. So, upon analyzing which among the pseudo participants have taken our participants by granted, we are going to omit or we are going to remove all the responses of that participant or that particular participant. And that is part of the data cleaning procedure, that we do in our computation. That is another misconception among our researchers. They do not conduct data cleaning. They do not conduct data cleaning. They just include everything or everybody without omitting invalid participants. There are also what we call as invalid participants. Researchers tend not to utilize data cleaning. So that is misconception, right? So upon providing scores for every statement, if the statement is positive, for whatever scale he or she has checked will be the corresponding point for that particular statement. So for example, I love the project because I like math. SA 5 has been checked. So the score for that particular statement is 5. In this case, since item number 2 is a negative statement, the interpretation is reversed. If what is checked is SD1, the score will be 5. If what is checked is 2, disagree, the score will be 4. So in this case will be 4. The interpretation will be reversed for negative statements. Why? Because in linguistics, we have here a negative statement and we have here a negative response. There are double negatives going on there. And in linguistics, double negatives mean positive interpretation. So, if this is a negative statement and the response is negative, the interpretation is actually positive. The same and true with numerical principle. Negative times negative is positive. So we'll have positive score for that particular scenario. So for this particular pseudo participant, here are the scores per statement. So after completing scoring all the statements for also the participants, we are now going to encode the scores in our Excel. In this case, we have statement number one, statement number two, statement number three, statement number four, statement number five, and so on and so forth. This is pseudo participant number one, pseudo participant number two, pseudo participant number three, pseudo participant number four, pseudo participant number five, and so on and so forth. How do we interpret these numbers in white cells? Participant number one had a score of 2 in the statement number one. Pseudo participant number one had a score of 3 in the statement number two. Pseudo participant number one had a score of 3 in the statement number three. Pseudo participant number one had a score of 2 in the statement number four, and so on and so forth, until such time that we complete all those statements. Now, once we are done completing all those individual scores, we are now going to transfer our data to SPSS. We are now going to transfer our data to SPSS because we're going to analyze our data using principal component analysis. Again, principal component analysis is just one of the methods in exploratory factor analysis, in which one of the applications is determining the validity of items in content validation of our in the construct validation of our skill-based instrument. Okay? So once transferring our data to SPSS, we're going to hit analyze in our ribbon, and then we're going to hit dimension reduction. And then we're going to hit factor. That factor means factor analysis. And then we're going to select all this var. This var1 is our statement number one. This var2 is statement number two. This var3 is our statement number three. Var4 is statement number four, and so on and so forth. We're going to select all this and transfer this here so that we would be able to tell to SPSS that all these statements are what we're going to analyze. You're going to click extraction. You're going to click extraction. We have transferred it here, and then we're going to hit extraction. Once we have hit extraction, we choose principal component, and then correlation matrix, and then script plot, and then eigenvalue. We're going to set eigenvalue greater than 1. You see, we have a lot of technical terms here. We have principal component, we have correlation matrix, we have script plot, we have eigenvalue, and so on and so forth. Don't be so much stressed about these technical terms. You leave these technical terms to us statisticians. What we're going, what we would want to present here are the things that you would want to just click on your SPSS. We're not going to talk about the technical side of split of script plot of the eigenvalue and so on and so forth. No, so we're just going to present here the things that we're going to click and what we're going to do next, and how we're going to interpret the data that will be shown by this SPSS. So once we have had one, you hit the continue bar, and then okay. Once you have hit continue and then okay, you will have this result. The results are quite small. So let us have the bigger version of this. So the eigenvalue, in this case, it tells us that our instrument should have 6 components because eigenvalues having values greater than 1 are 6 components. Okay? Now, what are these components? Remember what I have told you about components. In this case, in the final version of our instrument, we're not sure yet how many groups will be the final version of our instrument would be. We do not know yet how many groups there would be. So we're going to compute SPSS to determine how many groups uh, will there be. However, I have told you that in statistics, we're not actually calling these groups. We're calling them factors or components. In this case, there are two components. Component number one for objectivity and component number two, length of instrument. In this eigenvalue, in this eigenvalue, it tells us that our instrument should have six components. Should have six components because the eigenvalues which had values greater than 1 are 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's how we analyze things. However, you have to consider that we are dealing with analysis. When we say analysis, we are not contained but what number tells us. We are going to analyze because if eigenvalue tells us that there are six components, we will not believe, again, we will not believe right away that there will actually be six components in total. So we're going to analyze first whether there should be six components in the first place. So let us try six components in this case. Aside from eigenvalue, we could also identify the number of components using the script plot. We are going to determine in which part of the graph had there been a abrupt abrupt downward trend in the graph. In this case, the downward trend has started from this point. Okay? So from this point, we'll count the number of points above the downward trend. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So using the script plot also tells us that there should be six components in the final version of our instrument. So in this case, we're going to return to our data. We'll click again, analyze, and then dimension reduction, and then factor. And then extraction again. This time, we're going to fix the number of factors into 6. Into 6 because this time, we already know the factors or the components that the final version of our instrument should contain. In this case, there should be 6. So, okay. So, we have 6. We hit that continue and then okay. Until such time that we'll have this data. In this case, we cannot appreciate it yet. So I have added colors. The content here is just the same as the content here. I just added colors. Okay. This var1 here is our statement number 1. This var2 here is our statement number 2. This var3 here is our statement number 3, and so on and so forth. This is our component number 1, group 1. Component number 2, group 2. Component number 3, group 3. Component number 4, group 4, and so on and so forth, up to 6 groups. Because eigenvalue and script plot tells us that there should be 6 different groups in the final version of our instrument. Now, we are ready to interpret. As you have noticed, we are going to mark green, all numerical values greater than zero point 0.4. All numerical values greater than zero point 0.4. So 0.629 is greater than zero point 0.4, that's why it's in green. 0.514 is greater than zero point 0.4, that's why it's in green. This is negative 0.493. We're not going to get the absolute value. We're just going to get the raw value. So a negative number is less than positive number, so it's automatically not in green, and so on and so forth. All values here in green are all values greater than zero point 0.4. Okay, how are you going to interpret this now? For group 1, the group 1 should contain statement number 2, statement number 3, and statement number 10. That's what this group 1 tells us. It only means this computation tells us that statement number 2, statement number 3, and statement number 10 have something in common in them. That is why they should be grouped together to come up with one group. And the researcher should analyze what is the thing common to these three statements. Statement number 2, statement number 3, and statement number 10. Group 2 should compose of statement number 2, statement number 4, statement number 5, and statement number 7. Group 3 should compose of statement number 1, statement number 10, and statement number 12. However, group 4 should contain statement number 10 already all only. Now, this is not allowed. This is not allowed. There should be more than one statement per group because there's no such thing as group having only one member. Can you consider that group if there is only one person in that group? That is not a group. If there's only one person in that group, that is not a group. Therefore, this group number 4 is an invalid group. This group 4, based on our analysis, is considered as an invalid group. So out of 6 groups, we only have 5 groups left because group number 4, based on our analysis, is considered as invalid group because there is only one valid statement for that group. Okay? Now we proceed with group number 5. It tells us that group number 5 should contain statement number 12 and statement number 13. However, however, we can only see that statement number 12 could be could be placed in group 3 and also group 7. It tells here that statistically, statement number 12 can be part of group number 3 and group number 5. So the question is, to which group should this statement be truly belong? So in this case, you're going to compare the numerical value. In group 3, the numerical value is 0.585. In group 5, the numerical value is 0.509. This is greater. Group 3 is greater because 0.585 is greater than 0.509. Meaning to say, statement number 12 should belong to group number 3. So in this case, this green should be transferred there. And if this green is transferred there, we can only say that there is only one valid item for group 5. One statement, one qualified statement for group 5. That is not a group if there is only one statement there or there is only one person in that group. So based on our analysis, group 5 is also considered as invalid group, as an invalid group. So we have already omitted 2 groups. So 6 minus 2 equals 4. At this point, we only have 4 groups left. So we analyze group 6. For group 6, the valid items are statement number 1 and statement number 9. However, we can also see that statement number 1 can be placed at group 3 and at the same time group 6. So the question is, to which group should statement 1 be truly belong? So we're going to compare the numerical values. 0.632 is greater than 0.593. So statement number 1 should belong to group 3. So this green should be transferred to this green. So having that said, again, there's only one statement remaining for group 6. So again, based on our analysis, group 6 should be considered as invalid group again. So which means that even both eigenvalues and script plot tells us that there should be maximum of 6 components. Based on our analysis, it should not be 6, should be 3 only. So what you're going to do is this. You're going to return to your data. You're going to return to your data. Okay? You're going to analyze again, dimension reduction again. Factor analysis again, you transfer your variables, extraction again, principal component, correlation matrix, fixed number of factors. This time, you convert this into three. Because based on your analysis, the number of factors or the number of components should only be equal to three. So this will become three, continue, and then okay. And then that's the time that you will have this computation, this table here. We have here our set of statements. We have group number one, group number two, and group number three, which tells us which among these statements should be grouped together. So group 1 should contain statement number 2, statement number 3, and statement number 10. Group 2 should contain statement number 2, statement number 4, statement number 5, and statement number 7. However, a statement number 2 could be grouped to could be placed at group 1 and group 2. But 0.629 is numerically greater than 0.625. That's the time that we're going to decide to put it at group 1 once and for all. So in the final version, group 2 should contain statement number 4, statement number 5, and statement number 7. For group 3 should contain statement number 1, statement number 11, and statement number 12. So those are the statements that should be grouped together. Now, as you have noticed, in statement number 3, none among here are in green. None among which among these groups had a value greater than zero point 0.4 for statement number 6. What does that mean? It only means that statement number 6 is considered as invalid item. You should be able to remove that, must not be contained in the final version of your skill-based instrument. The same and true with statement number 8, since none of the values here are in green, therefore statement number 8 is considered as invalid item. The same and true with statement number 9 and statement number 13. Okay? So this time, you are now able to determine which among these statements should this remove, because all invalid statements should be removed, and at the same time, which among those statements should be grouped together. And once have identified the statements should be grouped together, you should think, you should analyze what is that something in common that this statement tell us. Okay? So, upon passing through this principal component analysis is not content validity, it's construct validity. Why? Content validity is about content, measuring competencies. We are measuring competencies when we are using content validity. Construct validity is not about measuring competencies. Construct validity is about measuring behaviors or skills. That is why the appropriate tool for measuring behavior or skills are not test instrument, but skill-based instrument. That is why we do not have content validity in skill-based instrument. We only have construct validity for skill-based instrument. Okay, so this time you already have the final version of your instrument. You're now ready to have it dry run again for the second time. This time to establish the reliability coefficient. Reliability coefficient. If in the test instrument we have test retest, we have parallel, we have split half, and we have Kudry-Richardson for test instrument. For skill-based instrument, we're going to use the Cronbach alpha, because that is the appropriate statistical tool in computing the internal consistency or reliability of skill-based instrument. That's according to Pinterich 1990. So how are we going to interpret our scores? Uh, the Cronbach alpha should be zero point 0.7 or better to be considered acceptable. To be considered acceptable. Okay? So how are we going to do that? So the same and true during the construct validity using principal component analysis. this time, second level of dry run, we're going to assign scores for every statement. So in this case, so the participant number one had a score of 4 in the statement number one. So the participant number one had a score of 3 in statement number two. So the participant number one had a score of 5 in statement number three. So the participant number one had a score of 3 in statement number four, and so on and so forth. This time, we are ready to compute the cronbach alpha using Excel only. Using the Excel only. Okay? So, once you are done encoding all the scores, uh, agham, ayan. Once you're done encoding all your scores, you hit that data ribbon and you click data analysis. After clicking a data analysis, you're going to select ANOVA two-factor without replication. ANOVA two-factor without replication, and then you hit OK. And then in the input range, you select your raw scores. For the output range, you select where would you want to have the computations reflected. And then you hit the OK key there. You'll have this set of numbers. We do not need these numbers. We scroll down, we scroll down, we scroll down until such time that we'll arrive at this set of data. You will need MS rows and MS error. This time you're ready to compute cronbach alpha, which is computed uh, by typing equals 1 minus MS error denoted by the green data over MS rows denoted by the orange data. You'll hit the enter key, you'll get the cronbach alpha, which is 0.965. It is within the interval zero point 0.9 to 1.0, which means the internal consistency is excellent, which is even greater than the acceptable value, minimum 0.70. Okay, that's the and after computing that, we are ready to claim that our instrument is ready for use in our data collection. In case that you do not have SPSS, in case that you do not have SPSS, you use jamovi.org. Again, in case that you do not have SPSS in your computer, you use jamovi.org. That jamovi.org is a freeware, statistical is a free statistical software where you could also utilize we could also compute principal component analysis. The procedures that I have told you in the computation of principal component analysis using SPSS would be the same principle and would be the same steps that you're going to utilize in jamovi.org. They are just the same. Okay? So we are done with our computation per reminders and asking questions. In case that you're going to ask questions that are specific to a particular research paper, I may not be able to answer that because as of now, we do not have statistician-client relationship for now. A statistician before he or she could identify statistical concerns in a specific research paper, he or she would need first to identify more details regarding the paper. So in this case, let us try our best in case that you would ask questions specific to a particular research paper. But to a certain extent, at this point, we do not have statistician-client relationship as of now. But in case that you would want to have or to establish statistician-client relationship with me, you could just send me a private message. Questions that are not mentioned or are too advanced compared to the content of the presentation may be better consulted privately. Things which are not contained in our presentation here, but you are interested much, could better be consulted privately through Messenger or through Facebook. And finally, This is not an advanced presentation. This is only a simple presentation since we have not dealt much on the technical aspect of eigenvalue, on quantity max, on Verimax, on the rotation of values, and so on and so forth. So thank you so much for listening. We are now open for our Q&A portion. Thank you so much.
Well, that was really a jam pack of information, Sir Patrick. The knowledge you have shared to us tonight is surely useful and very interesting, especially for those who are having their research. Very interesting topic, very informative discussion. I am sure the audience have benefited a lot for today's lecture that you have shared to us. Thank you so much again, once again, Sir Patrick. At this moment, we will now proceed to the most awaited part of the program, that is the Q&A portion. But before that, my dear audience, I would like let me remind you once again, don't forget to like, share, tag your friends, and write comments. Thank you for your support. You may start sending your questions now. Meanwhile, let's enjoy watching this short video. Okay, our code for today is IGP 4320. I guess we do not have our Q&A part of the program. Anyway, our code for today is IGP 430. So let me just check on that. Okay, I think the speaker is gone. So we have to proceed with the certification process. Again, you may take a screenshot of this one, of our code for today. That is IGP 4320. Okay, before we proceed with the certification process, I would just like to share with you some comments that I was able to read today. I think Alan Butas had 3 wins for today's quiz competition. He got 3 wins according to him. Congratulations to Alan Brutas and to Sir A.K. Adhikari. Sorry, I think we're just having some technical issue right now. And then also to Mustafa. Shout out to Mustafa Dar from Nigeria. And some of the participants also answered that the quiz competition is the most interesting part of the program. So our code for today is IGP 4320. Without code, no one is eligible for certificate. With code, you can claim your certificate anytime. And without an account on our website, you can only visit, but you will not be able to do anything functionally. To my fellow knowledge seekers, I would like to thank all of you for attending today's session. Let me thank all of you for being so patient, so active, and so attentive all throughout the webinar. Hopefully, you have learned something new today that will be useful in your life. The beautiful thing about learning is nobody can take it away from you. That is from the King. If you have learned something new or have been helpful to you, even just a little bit, please leave a review on our page. And also don't forget to like and subscribe to our Facebook page, Facebook group, and YouTube channel. Please spread the information about IGP to your friends and to your colleagues. And to your community. How to get your certificate? Just go to www.eduigp.com. Then you have to remember the date today, and the webinar title is Correcting Misconception in Instrument Validation. Okay, then after that, make sure to log in using your account. Please create an account if you are just new. Click free webinars, then today's date and title, and click enroll now. After clicking enroll now, and once you get enrolled, enter the code on the bar, and then click get your certificate. After that, your certificate will be auto downloaded to your device. Well, that concludes our program for today. To all the IGP Free International webinar participants, thank you so much for your support and for staying with us. Thank you for your active participation and engagement. Thank you for your heartwarming messages. Remember, IGP is here, always here to render you our best service. To the team IGP, good job, everyone, for another successful live session. This has been a worthwhile and engaging and rewarding day for all of us. We hope to see you all again in our upcoming webinars. All things work together for good to those who love God and to those who are called according to His purpose. Thank you so much. Stay happy and stay safe. Again, this is Maribeth, your host for today, signing off. To God be the glory. Bye. Bye, everyone.